Coaches, welcome back to the podcast. Awesome guest today, guys. Episode 374 with Chris Verdi. And I'm going to talk a little bit about him, but he's really going to kind of go over his own bio. I like when people kind of talk about themselves. But Chris, welcome to the episode 374 of the Championship Vision podcast.
Thank you so much, Coach. I appreciate it. We've got to know each other over the last couple of months, so I'm excited about doing your podcast.
Absolutely. And Chris and Core Restore is one of our champion sponsors, and we're so excited to have them part of our family and everything. And Chris is going to go over basically, how he got into innovating and creating this great product and so forth. And then we have a bunch of questions for you, Chris, to kind of go over. But before we
Great.
start, Chris is the MAT, which is the Muscle Activation Technique Specialist and founder of Core Restore, which I had the privilege of going to get a little workout with, and also Hippoline. All right. And that's part of the Core Restore training system. Chris is located in Watkinsville, Georgia, very near us. And we're so excited to have you, Chris. Please go over, how you got in to this innovative product. And I know your story is great. I've heard it, and I want you to share with us how you got into Core Restore and getting
Cool.
involved in helping people.
Sure. I was a young athlete. I discovered soccer at the age of 6 when my parents moved us to California. And I fell in love with the sport and ended up playing it spring, summer, fall, until I was up in college. And in college, on the off seasons, we would work out and get in the weight room and stuff. And I just happened to be in an internship in Houston, Texas, and was doing squats. And then I heard a pop. And that was when I was 19. And then by 21, I was in so much pain. Nothing was helping me. And that's when I ended up having surgery where they fused my sacrum to lumbar spine. And after the surgery, I grew up in Indiana. It was actually by Indiana Pacers surgeon. And I know at the time he was doing what he thought was best. And actually at the time it was one of the first surgeries in Indiana. It was a laser surgery instead of cutting me open. They used lasers. But anyway, ended up not being successful. Ended up staying in chronic pain for about 17 years after that. Sciatica, basically right foot couldn't feel. And then in my kind of my mid 30s, I was also an actor for many, many years because after that I couldn't play soccer anymore and dealing in chronic pain and all that. So in my mid 30s, I needed to get my life somewhat back because I'd been in pain so long. So I decided to become an athletic trainer, go back to school, learn all about the body, exercise, all that. Well, I came out of that even worse, and then just trying to discover how to heal myself and finally kind of take control of my situation because I didn't want to have surgery again. I ended up doing different modalities. I just happened to do a yoga class, a hot yoga class. I did a back bend, and lo and behold, ruptured 2 more discs. With a fusion, you don't do a back bend. Didn't know it at the time. Didn't know anything about mechanics. So obviously, that was really changed my life. At that point, I became ruptured 2 discs above my fusion and spent the next 3.5 years cricket event to the left. So I eventually became a trainer, was going through training for about 2 years. Then I came across a technique called muscle activation techniques. I was a trainer in New York City at an IDEA conference, and they were talking everything opposite of I've been taught in health and fitness. And at that time, I was in so much pain, I would try anything. Um, Started listening to the philosophy a little bit, got on his table, started doing some muscle testing, and the muscle testing ended up discovering I couldn't hold lateral flexion to the left, to the front, or to the back. And then what we do, and as an MAT specialist, we agitate muscle to make it activate and contract again, and all of a sudden I could hold the position. And I get off this table, and my hip dropped about halfway. And that hadn't happened in 3.5 years. So I thought, well, there's something to this, and basically gave up everything I was doing and said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I've been doing that technique now for, my 19th year of doing it. A little bit about this is okay, keep talking about everything to lead up to Hippoline. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And because I think a lot of people are going, okay, what does this differ from physical therapy, going to a chiropractor? Kind of, I
Right.
know you're going right into that, transitioning
Right.
into that.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of heading into actually is I'm
Yes.
so right, exactly, right on point. Excellent coach. Yeah, so the philosophy behind it is over time the muscles don't contract or work properly, therefore causing dysfunction throughout the body. And the force ends up getting absorbed throughout the body through the structures of the body, tissues, structures of the body, and not getting absorbed within the stabilization fibers in the muscle system. That's basically what we turn on again. And that is what increases the efficiency of the muscles to contract again. So there's a different number of ways that we look at what's going on in the body. And if anyone's ever interested, the gentleman who developed MAT is Greg Roscoff. And you can always go to their website, muscleactivation.com. Works with a lot of athletes and so on. But anyway, so that modality is just really looking at a body completely differently from a biomechanical standpoint and looking to see if you can hold certain positions when you're doing muscle testing. And depending on the level of MAT, you're going to do different things with different specialists. But the version I do is level 3, and that's working more with the nervous system through patterning and just getting the muscles nice and strong, be able to contract, and it basically rebuilds your body. It rebuilt my body. It took me a couple years to get me to stand straighter again, but it did help me with that. And I've helped all kinds of different kinds of people, athletes, to neuromuscular issues, any ALS, MS. But I really enjoy working with people, obviously, that, really appreciate what I do. But secondly, is I love athletes because being one, they understand what they can and cannot do. And then when you start to do something like in real time, all of a sudden, when you haven't been able to do it for a long time, or it completely changes the way you do it, it's a big game changer. And then from that thought process, my dad just happens to be a mechanical engineer. I'm a biomechanical engineer essentially. And I thought, okay, I'm spending all this time like turning people's muscles on, making them work better. Like I'm a trainer, I'm an athlete. I'm like, I want to train those fibers. So that's where I came up with my core restore training system, which is a full body training system based on activating stabilization fibers. So it's a movement training system that looks at what, movements are you're having trouble with and assesses in a way to bring those movements back to symmetry and increasing the activation of the muscles, the stabilization fibers to just in a whole different way than being on the table. And having my hands do it with MAT is more a therapeutic modality. But essentially, you start working with people and you start to see different things happening and not happening. And so my curiosity always had gotten me. So then I developed, I have 2 patents on my training system, and then, developed a whole manual that goes with it and a whole philosophy that goes with it. But then eventually, I kind of came out with that around COVID. And so during COVID, nothing was really going on. And I only sold one of them to one of my best mates that does MAT up in Alexandria, and she has one in her studio, loves it. Um, so I wanted something a little bit simpler and something that, can really target something really well. And so me having my fusion, it throws my hips off. And when you throw your hips off, it throws off your ability to have symmetrical force production and just have your hips more balanced so you're absorbing force better. And so that was the biggest thing for me. It was frustrating, like with MAT, with chiropractic, even with PT, when I had it, it wouldn't stabilize. With the hip align, which was basically my pulleys for my training system, which are pulleys that are 1 pound with consistent force that don't fluctuate and target the fibers to turn them on and really isolate and open up movement. I started
Mhm.
finding with my pulleys that I was rebalancing people's hips and it was staying. I was like, wow, that's really cool. That's really interesting because so much stems from the core and having that adequate motion there. And then with my pulleys, I take it a step further because once I balance the hips, now this is my hip align product, then I concentrate on can you rotate left to right? Can you rotate front and back? Can you tilt your pelvis forward, backwards? Can you hike side to side? Is that even? Can you do it? Does it come out of the plane of motion? What's the quality of motion? Is there pain, tightness? And once you start to correct all that motion with the pulleys, all of a sudden you have a more well-rounded place in your core to develop force production and to also, absorb the wear and tear of life and athletics and everything else. So it comes from my passion of of wanting something to help myself so I don't have to like find someone like me to do what I do on other people. I've always come from this philosophy of empowerment, knowledge, and taking care of oneself. And so I developed Tippalign as kind of that to do. So I really feel it would work good with, young athletes, especially because their nervous system isn't as taxed as adults. So, and the thing that's cool about the pulleys, it's really the pulleys manipulating and doing it, and the trainer or whoever's using the product is just cueing the individual of how to use it. And kind of I took yourself through that,
Yeah.
and and we could see a difference from the end to the beginning. But it's because eventually I want to have not only my hip align, but I want to have body align. So I want to be able to do the whole core without the huge training system. But so yeah, so that's kind of how I've come up to hip align and kind of my
Love it.
background and how I've gotten here. And so yeah, so we covered a lot, but
Yeah, for sure. And coaches, you can tell Chris is a smart guy. I mean, he's you can tell when you're a mechanical engineer or what my dad is actually an engineer, so I know I didn't get any smarts from him, but I
right,
can tell that you with engineers you like to analyze, break things down very
yes,
specifically in
all the
detail.
time.
Yes, for sure. I'm sure. And of course, your dad was too. So,
Yeah.
but
My
talk
dad's more
about
the mechanical engineer. I'm more the biomechanical engineer. So
okay.
that's where when we were developing my products, it's with the body, there's tons of variables that you'll never ever control, where in engineering you can kind of figure that out. And so that's where I didn't quite have that. So the mesh of the two of it together was quite special. Yeah, my dad, Art, is awesome person.
Chris, what happens? Like I remember talk a little bit specifically. I hate to bring me back up, but tell
No.
me where I was at the beginning of your workout, your evaluation, and how you changed me using your system there in your studio.
Good question. Well, that was a couple months ago. So, generally I can kind of remember. Um, so when I see
or
someone and
relate that
what,
to somebody who comes into your studio. You don't have
right,
to be
right. Well,
specifically what,
right. It doesn't
yeah,
have specifically to do what we did, but you did
yeah.
experience it. And everyone's coming in with their hips off. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking in the three planes of motion, in the rotation plane, which is transverse, and the sagittal plane, which is the front and back of the tilts, and then which is the frontal plane or the side to side hikes of the pelvis. And everyone is usually rotated forward or backwards, tilted forward or backwards, depressed or elevated either side. And I just use the pulleys to help align, pick the most obvious position, depending on what you're telling me. Like if you came in with a lot of pain or a lot of problems, I wouldn't go for that right away. I kind of just train him in his position he was in because I don't know if you were, but you could have been sore afterward because people don't really realize you're not training these fibers and they're not used to working. And all of a sudden they start pulling your pelvis in a way that your pelvis has never been in a very long time. It's a big shift. So that's why, so that's, yeah. So then once I get that balance there, then from there, I'm going to assess, okay, let's see, can the coach rotate? It's also isolating, like we're really isolating that pelvis. It is not easy because we don't break down motion a lot. So then I took coach through different isolated motions and see where he could do it or not do it. And I think if I'm correct, the hike was the hardest one for him because it is for most people because in basic biomechanics you have to have an anchoring point. I always keep the torso the anchoring point. You have an axis where everything rotates around, moves around, and then you have that lever, which is the pelvis, and it has to stabilize around that has stabilized with the anchor around the axis. And a lot of times when people are doing that, the side to side stuff is really hard not to lean, really hard to stabilize that way. Even the front and back, people will push or they'll flex or they'll do anything to kind of compensate to do that because again, we're not really taught specifically how to move isolated parts in the integrated movement. And so that's what's really challenging. And I find that I can have a session with someone, take someone through it, maybe in a half hour. I could have someone else and it would take me 2 or 3 sessions to get to the point where their pelvis would start to function right. Because it really does take, it's not only does it take the ability to do it, it also takes the pulleys are so sensitized and such a light amount of force that it stimulates your brain in a different way to really feel it. So it's like you're feeling the stimulation before you move. And it's not something we're used to, used to feeling. We're used to feeling we're going to move to feel. Well, I'm actually telling you the opposite. I'm going to tell you to move either not at all or hardly anything just to start to stimulate it, then move slowly and control the movements through eccentric, concentric, and isometric contractions.
Right.
And then once it's all stabilized, then I just take them and I make sure that person can go through all the exercises, kind of teach the body what we're doing and go through those planes of motion, which is about 8 exercises for people. And then it's a great way to keep checking in and activating those muscles around the hips so they stay nice and strong and ready for anything that's going to come at them basically.
Chris, I remember the adjustments, I guess, or the changes were very minute. It was like very little turns or whatever on that. I remember. But talk about MAT and what you call real time changes to the body. What does that mean?
So when I started doing MAT and why I became a specialist, because I worked with, as a kid with the back problems, I worked a lot with, and I was a lot a PT patient in many places, and I started getting into chiropractic way back when it wasn't, very well known, and everything would kind of help me to a point, but it never got me to the point where I'd actually start to get better or it'd start to change my body's ability to do something because a lot of it was working around what I couldn't do or trying to give me or force me or passively force me into something that I couldn't be in. So MAT is kind of in the middle where it's like it's taking that structure, adding an environment so that structure can start to like stabilize around that. So the structure can start to stabilize because now the muscles are starting to hold it there. And then you're starting to do the exercises and having the muscles communicating better and being activated better, they're going to be able to uh, improve that range of motion in a way that never really happened with anything else I did. And then when I found it, and I ended up going to a specialist in New York for a while, um, because for me, it's like I found something that gave me my life back, and I've told Greg Roscoff that. I mean, it seriously did because when you're in that much pain for so long, and you kind of lose hope, it's hard. And I recommend anybody goes to muscle activation techniques or muscleactivation.com. I think you have to put your zip code in there to find specialists all over. There's a lot of qualified, good people out there that are doing lots of good work. And anyway, yeah, so that's how MAT is a bit. And I feel it really looks at the overall function of the body and figuring out where in the body things aren't working instead of like a lot of times people with me will always say, oh, since I didn't have a curve in my lower back, I didn't have certain things, and so they'd force the curve or they would tell me to work around it, but no matter what happened, it became my detriment because I'd always end up getting hurt. So you have to work within the ranges you got, and that's what's really good with MAT.
Chris, what results do clients typically experience after a few sessions with you? Now, I just had one, but
Right.
how do they feel after a few sessions?
Well, you just actually just worked with my hip line, so and that's a different experience in itself. If people come in and they're starting with the body work, usually it's people that, not, I mean, 1 or 2 people over 19 years I've come in and go, hey, I want to really like perform better or be better. I mean, maybe more than that, but most people come in some kind of chronic pain. So in my opinion, you have to start with MAT because the forces you can't really, you're not taking anything else you're doing and being on the table and having someone kind of help you through something is much more therapeutic in the beginning. And then as you go, because I tell people I have like kind of a 4 phase process where I take people in with whatever's going on, pain, usually problems, athletic performance, whatever. Second phase, I'm like, okay, you're getting a little bit better, coming in and out. Third phase is kind of the phase I say, okay, this is where the fun begins. Now this is where I get to figure out why you keep breaking down, what's happening, and this is where I use my training system, MAT. I'm really a detective. I'm a movement detective, and I kind of have a couple other tools in my toolbox now, all dealing with movement. And then by 4, it's like maintenance, or people just work me in. They love what I do, and it's like going to a chiropractor. They love the benefit. They want the checkups. They want that maintenance for their muscle system.
Yeah, Chris, can you see me a little bit better here?
Yeah, I feel a lot better now.
Some people don't want to see me, so that's good. Hey, for someone who has never heard of MAT, how would you
Uh-huh.
describe its benefits as far as pain relief, mobility, posture? Kind of break that down for somebody
Um,
like me who's not really familiar with it.
it's an added, if you're one of those people that, some things like you're plateauing, your performance is stagnant, you just can't do certain things, your endurance, whatever it is, like being an athlete, yes. Now, if someone's on the opposite end where they're suffering with chronic pain, um, absolutely. I've not been able to help every single person, over the years, but you get better at figuring out who you can and who you can't and where you can refer people, because I do all the time. But um, I definitely feel I got a little lost the question again. There's a little. What was the question again, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, for people who never heard of
Oh,
MAT,
right.
yeah, how would you describe the benefits of? And you're right on playing there.
Right.
Pain relief, mobility,
Yeah.
posture.
Well, it's
Incredible.
definitely it's that, like, I've had a new client come today. She used to do MAT about 4 or 5 years ago. She had a hip replacement. She's been living in chronic pain because after the hip replacement, her back got so bad. She came in with like a 7 or 8 pain level Monday. She comes 3 hours to see me, then she stays over. Came in today. She told me yesterday, I saw her this morning, that was the first time she's able to get up, walk around. She's a sales job, so she has to do a lot of walking and meeting people. And she said, then about 4 o'clock, it was time to lay down. But she said, first session, like it helped her sleep. It helped her. I mean, pain does it does a number on you in a lot of ways. And when you have that feeling of relief, it is, I don't, it's so hard to describe the difference. I mean, I always tell people it's that answer you've been searching for. And it's like all those muscle stuff that never, no one can ever quote unquote diagnose. There's probably some reason that I can come up with or talk about or experience over the years that I've seen with people and their muscle issues, because everyone's different, but it's definitely something to add into your regimen. And because I always tell people, like, when your muscles are activated and things are working right, you're getting the benefit out of massage, chiropractic, training, everything. I mean, it really is something that kind of covers the gamut, as far as when it comes to, because I mean, I understand when you can't move and you can't function, it changes you. It's why I've dedicated my life to this, really.
Yeah, and I guess most people take meds. And I think that's where
Yeah.
that's a whole
Yeah,
nother
a lot
podcast.
yeah, and that, people
Yeah,
get stuck in the system. Like, are you medical? We're like, no, we're in the fitness industry, and
right.
we look at the body from head to toe. Like, it's a system of integrated parts, and I think Greg Roscoff says that all the time, and it's true. It's like there's so many things working in order for something to get accomplished, but we're responsible for the muscle system, but yeah, it can. I mean, people just have to, I always give complimentary consultations because I want people to want to be there. I mean, I'm fine with people who want to try it, but if people really want to be there, I want them to be there because it is a process. I mean, simple. I mean, some people I tell, you got a year, you got 2 years easily. A lot of people I just get to the point I could, like, just kind of like commit to the first 3 months and see how it is. And usually people can tell pretty much right away if they're starting to feel better.
Yeah, and that's again, you have a great service model that you use, but why is it important to have one-on-one consultations with people?
Um,
That's part of your service model as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I would say important to figure out why are they here. That this is a partnership. I see you maybe an hour or maybe 2 hours in a week, maybe every other week, maybe every other week. But it's a commitment, and I want to get to know. There's three things I look for people: accountability, appreciation from them. And of course, I'm going to forget the third at the moment, but it's the end of my day.
The third A has
Yes,
to be rewarded.
yeah, Dan in the corner is like, take responsibility. Yes, take responsibility for their health. Yeah, I don't like victims. I want people, I understand that part. Don't get me wrong. And I'm always willing to work with people, but it's you just, you got to take that responsibility and say, okay, I don't care if it's not going to be, I'm going to pay for whatever it is. If you're going to get that done, I always tell people you choose what you value. I don't go on a lot of vacations. I don't buy a lot of nice clothes. Um, you know, it's just that's it. And then I always tell people, it is up to you. And I just want to make sure that this is a relationship and that they kind of get it or understand it. And some people never come back, which is fine, and which I'd rather have. So I don't want to waste their time nor mine. And some people come in and don't last very long, but then other people come in and it's just like we
Right.
click, it works, people, and it's determinate. I mean, you got to be consistent. Like, it doesn't help if you're not consistent because I'm literally rebuilding like your muscle system. I'm rebuilding your foundation basically.
Yeah, any type of physical therapy, man, you got to stay with it. I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, hey, let's talk about golf. I love golf, and how does MAT help golfers in particular?
Well, one of the famous golfers, Bryson DeChambeau, is a big proponent of MAT and has seen Greg Grosskopf for many, many years. And I think they've done some golf specials and all kinds of things. And well, with golf, it's like, it's being able to get that force and get that effortless force. And your mechanics have to work so well, have to be so precise in order to accomplish what you do. And Bryson sees the edge. He feels the edge. You've seen him. He went from like, where he was to where he is now, and it's night, it's completely different. And I do contribute, and of course, all his hard work, but MAT is that kind of modality. It's very powerful. And rotation is a big proponent of golf. Side bend, a big proponent, and again, symmetry. We look at symmetry. I'm gonna get you as symmetrical as I can through the muscle system. And I see a lot of golfers in Georgia. I see tons. Again, I like athletes. I have a golfer now. I've been seeing him like about three months now. Was coming in for something else. And then all of a sudden, a byproduct was he's on the golf course with his seven buddies, and he bent down to pick up the tee, and he saw me twice, and they're like, "Oh my God, what are you doing? Your body's completely different." Like just bending down to pick up the tee. So golfers are very attuned to mechanics, and they're very attuned to what a good swing. So, and he just told me this weekend he did two matches back to back, and did really well, did the best he had done. So yeah, it is for people looking for that edge, and I know golfers will spend anything to get the game improved, and it's one reason that MAT it's just it's movement. It's movement. Like it doesn't really matter what your sport is. It's like I work with a lot of equestrians, and they're some of the most fascinating people because they have to be so attuned to that horse, and
Mhm.
their body has to be so relaxed, but yet not. And I have one, her name's Holly, and I adore her, and she's come to me for over 2 years now, religiously. And she said to me this past week, she goes, Chris, it was amazing. This is the first time I've been on my horse, and it's a very strong horse. And she goes, I was so relaxed but so engaged for the first time ever. Now that's the work and the determination that I like that athletes have because that's when people see the results is that long-term process. So yeah, your golf game, your equestrian game, whatever it is, it's going to improve. Um, you know, uh, because I think too that it's important with golfers because the golfers want the edge.
Mhm.
And there's so many golfers that are the weekend warriors kind of thing. So, and a lot of business is done with golf too. So,
Oh, for sure, for sure. Definitely a lot of negotiations or everything
yeah,
are always solved on the golf course.
right.
But I can tell you this, just from knowing the golf game, is what goes in golf is not the shoulders, that it's the back. So why is that? And why is it so well unknown in mainstream golf about MAT? Why is that? Or is it
Um,
just
well, I think it's like any young modality. The organization. I think about 25 years old. I've been in it 19 years, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit less. Um, New things really take time. Chiropractic started over 100, probably 10 years ago, maybe longer. Um, not, no, not 110. Oh, that's wrong. But, just think of how long, it took for chiropractors. It's just a whole different way it really challenges you. It challenges the average person to think about things differently. And again, I think that's why it comes back to athletes sometimes, because if you're going to improve and going to change, you got to be open to different ways of thinking,
Yeah.
right? And that's really the kind of, I think of right now, it's like kind of coming to, it's like, those are the kind of people I get. I get those kind of people. It's like, that it just, yeah, I'm sorry if I'm fading out a little bit, but
No, no. So
uh,
you like people that want to think outside the box.
yes, absolutely. I mean, that's the only reason I'm here and have invented the stuff I have and have worked so hard to keep my business and because my business grows by word of mouth. People experiencing me. It does speak for itself. But yeah, so that's why I'm doing more podcasts now too, to kind of get my products out there and start, because I'm in the process of, I've hired a team to help me write a book. And I wanted to launch kind of my products and get it out there, because I'm looking forward to, maybe, I don't know if this is one of your questions, and I'm kind of leading into it if it was, but um,
Sure.
that for me, it comes down to being able to help myself. I mean, I'm such an adamant about that, because it's just hard when you have to just rely on other people all the time. And so that's where my hip line product starts, is that ability to have something to self-correct, because my fusion comes out, my hips come out a lot, and sometimes it can be daily, sometimes it can be other day, sometimes it holds a little bit. But just putting myself on that machine, it can help me feel so much better within seconds. So,
Chris, let's get right into Hippoline.
yeah.
So, and you pretty much already um, have talked about this, but what inspired you to invent Hippoline and Core Restore training system? You already said, but bring us back to that point.
I'd say what, core store training system was a way to treat myself. It was a way that I could use that system to handle my modality with doing MAT. With Hippoline, it really was about being able to give a product that people could really use for themselves, that wasn't too hard to understand. And I'm probably answering it the same way again, but again, I think it just comes back down to that and empowerment.
What movement problems did you see in your clients that led to building your own tools?
Oh yeah, so it comes back to that inability of people's hips to stabilize. And it does cause a lot of wear and tear on the joints, a lot of muscle pain in the lower back, a lot of pain down to the knee, the foot. A lot of people over the years, I witnessed the people I'd work with, so much of their lower back pain was coming from their hips, from the lack of the hips pulling down. So then everything's kind of cinching up in the back, because I think of muscles as pulleys, systems, and retraction and extension of pulleys, and that's really muscles all the time. Some stabilize, some pull, some relax, and it kind of like a simplification is like the muscles around the hips are pulling away and pulling down, and when muscles aren't pulling, it's cinching up, and so. But again, the opposite is, if I'm not dealing somewhat with the structure and I keep just working the things that are holding it together, I found sometimes wasn't really helping. So if I could balance those hips, keep them balanced, and in actuality, having the person balance their hips themselves by using cueing and the pulleys, then keeping those muscles activated around the hips were much easier. And I lasted results. I had some people last 2 years before the hips would come out. Um, so yeah, that.
And I'm gonna throw something in here. Is can people take your techniques and then apply them at home, working on, or does everything have to be within consultation and
Well, I mean, yeah, there's different facets to my business. I have the service business and then I have the product business. So, yeah, I mean, people within the vicinity. I mean, I have people coming 3, 4 hours sometimes to see me.
right,
People just depend on what they want to do. But yeah, that's why I've developed, the product. So it's not going to be for the average person. It's going to be for people that are going to really want to take some time to study and really know how to use this, or end up having it in the training facility in the high school, or really having the trainers use it to help the athletes. If you're far away and not near Georgia, but in Georgia, they would come have a consultation, and see whether they wanted to go through my services, because if you're gonna have MAT, you need to see an MAT specialist. But if you're gonna, do my training system, you would have to come see me. But other than that, the HIPAA line is something that you could incorporate into whatever you're doing. And the thing that's great about my products is that it adds to what you're doing. Like, it adds to other things. People can incorporate what HIPAA line into anything. It could be like a warm up in the beginning of a training session. It could be a way for someone to assess, and then go to a different kind of assessment. There's different ways you can use, at least the HIPAA line.
who are using your tools now?
Oh, who are using my tools now?
Yeah.
Trainers, MAT people. Again, like I think I was saying, is I don't. I'm looking to get it out there to more people, and that's and again, I can do Zoom training with people. With my product, you get a manual. You get online videos through the whole manual to kind of teach you what you're looking for. So these are people that are going to want to, again, like, kind of add it to their protocols, add it to the regimen. Just a different assessment tool in a lot of ways. Having that symmetrical hips are going to be, optimal for, I can't think of what sport it wouldn't be, but so that would be that.
Let's talk. I'm a basketball coach, so my
Right.
next question is in relation to basketball. I know this basketball, jumping, lateral movement, a lot of different movements. It's probably the most variant movement sport I think that's out there. How can your tools make a difference in a basketball player?
Oh, look, very simple. It's like, in movement, there's overuse and underuse, and there's injuries that cause compensation. So athletes are great compensators. So with the hip line, you're using that product to kind of undo the bad mechanics, so they become more symmetrical, more functional. So they're not going to end up being injured or hurt from all the different movements of the hips. It really just it's so funny because when people get very specific with me, it's like I just kind of see all movement as movement, and I look at the movement and see what's happening. And all movement really is it stems from the core. There's other things obviously going on, but you know it I believe I've broken it down in a way that's a way to kind of dissect it somewhat, and see, like, you saw how hard it was to isolate your pelvis, and you should be able to isolate your parts, and then the integrated parts work better. I mean, it's and vice versa as well. But um, that's I just I think for me, like being a soccer player, like I kicked with my right foot all the time. I think that's probably what led to my hip problems, my back surgery, because I'm sure my hip on my right was way forward. So if you're twisted like this, think of what that's doing up and down the chain of your body. And all that force is being redistributed in a way that's just not gonna good. You're gonna be having injury. So it really is an injury prevention machine. It really is a way to keep from future injuries. And that asymmetrical motion is going to take a toll at some point. It just depends on the person.
Chris, give us some success stories from athletes or coaching using your tools.
Okay. So I've that's a good question. Um, like I don't, it's just, I think in general, it's people that, all of a sudden, like I remember years ago, I had this woman, and she'd done MAT for a while, and then using my training system as it's just a different way to process information, and you're really doing it. And one thing that, like, she could never do is she could never feel her abs when she would do a crunch, no matter what she did. And she was, I think, in her 50s at this point. And, we'd finally got her on the training system one day, and I just started her a very simple position. And she sat down, and we just started crunching just a little bit, putting my torso piece on, and she started to bawl. And she's like, I've never felt that in my entire life. She goes, I've worked so hard to feel that, and I'm feeling it right now. So those
Mm,
are little things that end up happening all the time. I've seen amazing things. I've worked with a woman recently who was kind of came in like this, and she had a lot of neck issues. And I said, well, I'm not going to really start there. I'm actually going to start in your feet. And she kind of looked at me weird. Was like, well, what's my problem? I'm like, well, she's had that chronic pain for 3 years. And the last thing I want to do is just go up to the neck. I want to see how her body responds. Because if you look at a structure and all of a sudden your body's like this, and then, okay, now your center of gravity is here. Like that's a long way for your head to be. And then your head's over. And then and so I thought, well, if I can work on our base first, let's see what happens. I think it was like the third session or fourth session. She got off the table and she was completely straight. And
mm.
then she walks out to Dan, and Dan's like, "Oh my gosh, like look how straight I am." She didn't realize it. Those are the kind of things that we see all the time. I remember a little girl, she's probably a young woman now, saw me when I was in Jersey. She was training for the Olympics from Mexico. There'd never been an Olympian ice skater from Mexico, and that was her goal. She was 12. Was she 12, Dan, at the time? I think she was 12 at the time. She had had MAT out in Mexico. I had two gentlemen there. She'd been training in Jersey with a Russian coach, and she had got her skate caught in the ice, caused a tibial fracture, rotational fracture. She had it on forever. She comes into me with it off. They want me to work right away. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm going to assess you first. I'm going to see what you can and cannot do. And her body was so contorted, like her hips were completely off, her torso was completely off, and I had her lay on the table. I said, straighten out your leg, and then she could like maybe be like here, and then so she straightened her leg. It was yeah about here, and then it was extension and flexion. She could hardly do it, and then all I did was put her on my training system and thinking of mechanics and thinking of force, load up the pulleys in a way that I could rotate her back to neutral. As I rotated her back to neutral, she gets back on the table. Her leg goes completely straight. She flexes it all the way back to her thigh, and she's like, "Oh my God, I have no pain." And she gets up and starts walking, and her grandmother didn't speak English, and she's like, "Miracle, miracle." I was like, I'll never forget that. That was an awesome moment, and I kind of fell in love with her at that moment, and she, really was like, and again, those are the kind of moments over the years that, again, I mean, now you're gonna have me talking and thinking about all my clients. One more story, and
For
then
sure.
I'll go. And this is a basketball player, and he was, I think, a sophomore, and he ended up having a lumpectomy. Well, anyway, after the lumpectomy, it was the left side of I think it was his left leg. I'm pretty sure it was his left leg. Was just, it looked like it was like this compared to the other leg.
Mm.
Just had no blood flow, nothing, couldn't do anything. My friend, a chiropractor, said, Chris, I can't even move him, can't lift his leg, can't do anything, come to see him. And so I started looking at him, and I just started doing little things with MAT, stuff, a little isometrics, a little activation exercises, and activation. And all of a sudden, I started to see the blood flow just run to his leg. It was like, holy moly. And he was with me for about 2 years. And he gave me a call years later, like 10 years later, and just said, hey, I wanted to let you know how much I care about you and how much you helped me. And, you gave me my life back. Those kind of things. They mean a lot because, suffering as I did as a kid, as a young adult, it can get very dark, let's say. So, yeah,
Yes.
a lot of stories.
No, I love those stories. Matter of fact, that's the passion. That's why you're doing what you're doing, Chris. So the pain that you've gone through, they say something about the pain that you go through. Um, that's what helps you
Oh,
with
yeah.
other people. Um, do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I remember years ago as I was in a doctor's office and I'm sitting there looking, I see this book sitting there, and I tell this story a lot, but this is kind of little things in my moments that kind of got me to where I was. and it was called The Peace Pilgrim. And I just picked it up, and it was about this lady that she gave up all her worldly possessions, kept like six, and walked across the country for peace
Mm.
until she passed away. And one of the things she said in there is every problem presents an opportunity. And that was probably the first moment when I thought, well, maybe I'll figure this out, or maybe this will be the time that, I, do something to help me and help people not be in this situation. Those are that I would say absolutely that statement is true. It's like pain is a huge motivator. I wouldn't have done what I've done if I had been not in pain. When I first started my class, I was the only one in my class that really, I mean, I had been training for maybe a year or two, but an athlete, but still, I didn't know a lot. I came from an acting world. I was acting for 16 years. And there's one other guy who was a carpenter from Canada, and we were the only two, and we were completely novice, but it was it was an amazing way to look at the body and to start to see I was actually rebuilding my body. Um, Absolutely. So,
Yeah, and Chris, thank you for sharing your story, by the
oh,
way.
sure.
I'm sorry we got to wrap up here, but I do
That's
have,
okay.
we want to know a little bit more how people, what's the best way for coaches and athletes to connect with you?
Yeah, you can go to our website, which is core-restore.com. On there, we have an information page, and you just go into the information page, put in your info, and just send it right to us. And then Dan, our operations manager, will get back to you. Anyway, if you're looking for services, looking for product, you can go to my website. I have pages for MAT, painage for my full body training system, painage for my HIPAA line, stories of people, and it has everything that you could want to know about my business is on that website. So that is the best place to get me, www.core-restore.com.
Absolutely. What do you wish people knew more about pain, posture, and performance?
Um, that's a good question. I I want, like I think I said at the beginning, there were like two people who came to me and said, my muscles aren't activated. I would like to have that become a general idea in the population. Because people know when my bones are out, I go to a chiropractor. Or if I feel sick, I go to the doctor. And that's kind of what I would want for people doing what I do. Because it 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 is so important to get the right feed to the muscle. It is so important. I'd say that would be the thing I would like to see in the vocabulary.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you're saying, it's a new innovative product. You're just trying to get it out to the masses now
Right.
on what the great things you are doing. And that is my job is to help you on the
Well,
championship
I
vision.
appreciate that. And again,
No
Coach,
doubt.
if you're interested, I always talk to people too. Like you can set up a call, a time, I could even come out depending where you are, and kind of train the trainers or train you or whatever it is. It's like, it's just, it's for those people looking for an edge or looking for a way to help your athletes not, end up in my situation.
And let's ask about Dan Burnford now. He is your agent. He does a lot of things for you. Talk about let's get Dan in there to really talk about the great things that he does for you.
Well, Dan runs the day-to-day operations of my business, so I can concentrate on getting people better. I can't tell you, I've told him many times and everyone that knows him many times that I would not be doing what I'm doing. Especially, I don't think I would have moved to Georgia and started over again because a lot of it we had done in Jersey, and it was really challenging to start over. But I credit him with all that hard work, the networking. Oh
For
my God,
sure.
he's like he's such tenacious when it comes to networking. Everybody always says they want a Dan, like you did in the beginning.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Everybody always says they
I'm
want.
gonna hire him. He doesn't even know it.
Yeah, well, he ain't going anywhere. So he has a little bit longer here before he wants to retire. So
That's right.
he has some big dreams in the next couple of years, and I'm going to make it happen. We've worked really, really hard. Dan, you've been with me 8 years now?
Yeah.
Was it 8 years? Wow. I still remember when it came in. Dan and he tells me that, we've known each other almost 30 years. And he says, oh, I remember when we were doing this community theater together and how one day I said, you're going to work for me. And sure
Yeah.
enough, he did. It took him 3 years to do it, but I had asked him, but he doesn't move quickly. But again, he once he commits to something, he's all the way there. I have to tell him constantly, it's 9 o'clock at night, it's 9:30 at night. I don't want to work anymore. Like just stop, like stop. And he's always pushing the next thing, do the next thing, and you do need that. I mean, you do need someone that's
Mhm.
gonna do all that because it is, I did it by myself for 12 years, 10 years, and then I brought someone on board for a little bit, and then brought Dan on board. Um, yeah, Dan is invaluable.
Yeah, greatness cannot be done alone.
No.
Uh, and greatness has to be, you got to find people to partner with. And you sure have done that a great job. What's next for Core Restore in your product line? And this is the last question.
Yeah.
Uh, what's next for you guys?
Really, what's next is really the book I'm going to start working on. I'm very excited. I found a company actually through a gentleman here, Jake. I can never Jake Blickenstaff. Sorry, Jake. I can never. I want to say another name, but it's from a buddy of mine from high school, so it messes me up. But I brought him in. He has a commercial real estate business, and he had mentioned, oh yeah, he goes. I'm doing this, I hired this company to write this book, but they're not the average company. They want people that really want to do like coaches, trainers, talks that are giving something back or doing something or selling something or something that they can sell. It's like a launch to something else. It's not just about writing a book. I thought,
Mhm.
wow, that's what I need. I need to get out there globally, and I need more access. And what better way to give you credibility than a book? We've talked now. I'm gonna start in August. It'll take me about 5 to 6 months. 6 months, they said, or so to write the book. They you have different people going through the book with you, and then they do the 6 to 7 months to start to launch it, to get 200 to 300 followers that you can just start doing TED Talks, podcasts, social media, all kinds of different things. So I'm really excited about it because a lot of people over the years have said you should write a book. And when I had my meeting with the gentleman, he blew me away. I mean, he's a young gentleman, and he arced my book. He put all the category. He's like, I see it this angle or this angle. I'm like, that angle is, yeah, that's the one I thought you'd pick. And he said, oh, and I heard you say this in the beginning, but you probably don't remember saying it. And sure enough, I didn't. But he came up with the title of my book, and it's brilliant. So I'm looking forward to it. So that's going to be my next project. Really, the launch date is, I think he said it was like February 2026, which is cool. My birthday, and that's also why
Nice.
I just did that trade show because I don't know if the trade show is the angle for me. I think this might be a better angle because it'll get me out to more people. And because one thing I've learned through doing things is that you need things to back up what you're doing, and I think this is a way that I can do that.
And books are a great um, books are great to get it out to the public and so forth.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to it. I mean, you're not gonna give me the name of it, or is that still in waiting
No,
right now?
I don't want to give the name because I really
Oh,
like the name because
I
I don't
thought
know
I have a
if you take it.
breakthrough.
No, 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 no. Can't
Okay,
give the name. It's like one thing I've learned in business, you can't talk too much because it really everyone I've told that's close to me is like, oh yeah, that's you, Chris. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a blend of everything that I've worked on for the last 19 years. So
absolutely sharing the knowledge of how you got to where you are now. Chris,
right.
thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. I think you're a true innovator. Great
Thanks.
things are ahead for you and Dan. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge. Any final words for us?
Well, I do appreciate you too, as well, having me on. It's been great getting to know you, and I thank you for that and introducing me to your followers here. Um,
Okay.
I think I think one of the most important things is people don't realize how important recovery is. And our whole business is based on recovery. That's one thing I didn't do. And that's one way I ended up the way I ended up because I didn't listen to my body. I didn't rest. And it really comes down to rest. But, our whole system is based on, getting your body a way to recover and improve and build that strong foundation. And I think there's a lot of athletes and a lot of people in general that are burning it in both ends. And this is a way to keep you from going there. So I encourage you to look up my website or look up muscleactivation.com if you're looking for ways to improve your game, improve your muscle health, and just feel better.
That's awesome. And I know as coaches, we grind, we grind, we grind. And we do that with our players, but we don't focus on recovery. I think
Yeah.
that's a great point. I think coaches lack in that. So I think that's for another podcast, Chris.
Yeah. There you
Podcast
go.
number 2, recovery.
Cool.
But thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. I appreciate
Um, and I know a lot of people are going to really love your story. And thank you for giving back to society, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, and good luck, and we'll speak soon.
Sounds good.